Are the Direwolves going to keep their streak clean? Cleaner than the game that Elevate just put on. A bit of a showcase, in fact. Direwolves on to what will be their 6th match if they're able to confirm this. Raven, do we give WILDCARD much of a chance here?
Look, I think WILDCARD have definitely shown some glimmers of hope throughout this stage. Their roster seems like it has these moments of fitting together really well and producing some good plays, but it's still a bit inconsistent. So, look, I think it depends on what we get out of WILDCARD, but it's hard to look past how good Direwolves have looked this entire stage.
They have been very consistent, but WILDCARD, they're known for some sporadic moments. Not so much the consistency, Dev, but it feels like, I mean, maybe this is just the OS bias, but it feels like this roster is starting to get into their grooves.
No doubt about it. Look, WILDCARD, they have some critical errors, but I think a lot of the things that they have been trying to fix have massively been uplifted coming into this stage, this season even, with the 2 new players, OJ bringing in a lot of a supportive role, a lot of a vocal role to the team, and Cairo just being such a strong fragger and also having a lot of ideas on his own. It's been a massive upgrade for this squad, and we've seen that in the results. They've had 2 really strong, convincing wins, 3 losses, unfortunately, none of which were in overtime, has meant that a lot of their points have gone wanting, and they're currently sitting in 6th, deeply outside of playoffs position on only 6 points. So it is quite unlikely that these guys will make it through. Of course, if they can break Direwolves' streak, that may change.
Well, in dire contrast, it is the Direwolves. 15 points, 4 clear at the moment, I believe. They're still sitting well and truly on their throne. And honestly, Raven, this may well be the first 21-point season that we're going to see in APAC South.
Look, it feels like it, but I also feel like you've just gone and cursed them or something manic. I feel like that's what usually happens to us. But no, I agree. Like, they've just been performing so well throughout this stage. Their roster has looked really tight, and I think above all, they look like they have a good mix with their roles, their coordination, and most importantly, their vibe. I mean, I've talked about it already. We've interviewed 3 of their players so far this stage, and they're all just lovely, happy, upbeat, positive people. You see it when we look at their cameras. They're usually just up and about. It's definitely the formula for a winning team.
The Harambe celebration is becoming quite notable, Dev. It feels like it is, isn't it? No, but honestly, I think if you look from last year to this year, they were like kind of coming into their own. It was like a coming of age storyline in 2021 and 2022. It's all partying. It's all happy times to them at the moment.
They've hit their 20s and they're ready to get out there. And yeah, I mean, absolutely. That is what we're seeing with Direwolves. They have come of age and now they are looking like the strongest team in the league. They are 15 points, 5 wins, all in regulation, not a single loss, not even a single overtime. And yeah, absolutely bringing Harambe onto the team has been a huge boon for this roster. And ED himself has remarked upon how this roster has come a long way from it really being carried by Souffle and Pika to being a position where all 5 of these players are, I would say, equally nuts. Like, it could be any one of these players stepping up, getting a 3K, 4K, or a clutch, or what have you. And yeah, they are a fair step ahead of WILDCARD. 2.5 times as many points as WILDCARD has so far this stage. This is a David and Goliath match if I've ever seen one. But, you know, Direwolves, will their streak go on forever? We're not entirely convinced as of yet.
No, and I guess that's probably the next question that we pose, Raven, is where does this end for Direwolves? Does it end for Direwolves? I feel like there's got to be a point at which they stumble, they fall.
Yeah, look, it's hard to say. I feel like their biggest opponent would have been IG, but that was just an unfortunate affair where we didn't really see that eventuate.
Very true.
So, I don't know. It might honestly come in playoffs.
Yeah.
It's hard to say, but they're just performing so well as a team. And I've actually just quickly had a look at stats, little fun fact here. They are the only team where every player is positive in terms of KD. Every single player. Even IG don't have 5 positive players. So I think it's just an absolute credit to how well they've played as a team.
That is actually interesting fact, sponsored by Xenox, of course. The only map that hasn't been played so far in APAC South is Theme Park. Will we see it here? Time to bring up those maps, determine where we are going to be going. It's been a very tough call. Hello, Border. I mean, Dev, just initial thoughts on this one.
Look, I haven't casted a Border game yet. We missed it when it was Knights and Elevate who played it the other week, and yeah, I'm keen for it. Border, has not changed that much compared to old Border. So if you watched Border back in the day, like, let's be honest, the only thing that's really, like, there are a couple of things that have changed, like the Teller's bomb site's a bit more defendable now. There's that little mezzanine, but this is still, in my mind, a very attacker-sided map, and the attackers can really break this map if they play it right. Obviously, with only 9 rounds played, you can't read too much into the stats, and neither of these teams having played it as of yet means that we don't have a lot to go on. But I think that this is really gonna, one, benefit Wildcard if they can play their really structured attacks. If they know how to break this map from an attacking perspective, then credit to them, that's fantastic. But you know what Direwolves are good at? They're good at breaking free from the static attacks and defenses and doing something really free-flowing. And if they can do a bit of what Elevate did against Knights, just throw some chaos at Wildcard on the defense and prevent Wildcard from doing those structured attacks, I think absolutely Direwolves could really have a good shot here.
Status quo, the Dire Wolves do not sit in, that's for sure, Raven. No. This matchup in particular, as we head to Border, I want to get your thoughts. Are we leaning toward the Aussie boys, or is it just going to be a continued domination from the Wolves?
Definitely leaning towards Direwolves for this one. I just think it really favors their playstyle more. We saw that in the Elevate Knights matchup. It just really favored Elevate's playstyle. I would say Knights, not Knights, what am I saying? Direwolves play in a similar way to Elevate. Yep. I think probably in this stage though, probably even cleaner. So I'm not sure about this one. I was actually looking at the veto, and I feel like Direwolves did a really good job at controlling this veto. It came down to like Bank, Theme Park, Skyscraper, and Border, or something like that. And Direwolves banned Bank, so it left 3 pretty like unplayed maps for Wildcard. I feel like maybe Wildcard were angling towards Bank because it's actually Direwolves' most played map. So maybe they had prepped for that and it just was taken away from them and they were taken to a different map. I don't know. It's hard to read into, but that's just my gut vibe.
Look, I think Border is going to be an interesting one. Wildcard and Direwolves go head-to-head. The flawless streak is on the line for Direwolves, and to run you through it, it's Xenox and Guz.
Yeah, and top 4 on the line as well for Wildcard. I mean, you'd have to think at this point, guys, it's must win if they are to have any sort of semblance of hope at getting into the top 4. And maybe there's a position that is there for them with the Chiefs blundering earlier. For Direwolves, it's, just that streak, really. I guess there's not much in terms of on the line for them. So less concerns for Direwolves. Must win for Wildcard.
It sure is, and Wildcard not the favourite, understandably so, heading into this matchup, only collecting 37% of that community poll, and I think that probably reflects pretty decently their chances of being able to win this match. I think the funniest thing for me, heading into this particular map of Border, is for the longest time, for literally years, this was almost always the first insta-ban for Wildcard. Now I don't have the like number of days it's been since they've played this map, but I would have to say it has literally been years. So very keen to see how they've improved. Obviously the entire roster has shuffled around since then, so bit of an obscure fact. But jumping into the ban phase, of course, Thatcher out first. Probably expecting another util clearance operator to be second, maybe a Flores, for example. No, actually Dockerby. So interesting. I'm assuming that's pretty defensive from Wildcard, not wanting Direwolves leaning into that aggressive room clear.
Last time we saw Border, and the only other time we saw Border so far for stage 1 was that Elevate versus Knights matchup. And both Thatcher and Mira were taken off the board there, the other two being Finka and Valk. So the Dockerby, maybe somewhat of a little surprise there, I guess, when you consider how much more you could try and take off the board, as Direwolves will get the final ban out here. And it's Kaid. Nothing really too fancy there, besides maybe the Dockerby. Otherwise, it is go time. Direwolves on the defense, Wildcard on the attack. As Dev pointed out, probably attacker-sided. Elevate did most of the damage against the Knights on the attack, had a 4-2 half. Did close it out on the defense. It's not impossible. And I would say the sites that we're probably going to see the most of will be Armory Archives and Teller's Bathroom.
Now, I am intrigued heading into this matchup what the mentality, what the approach for Direwolves would be. They are still the only team secured for playoffs, so this match doesn't have any playoff implications for them directly for qualification. Now, there may be seeding implications as we see the actual playoff format hopefully released soon, but it's really just a bit of prize money ultimately for them. And I don't know, will their approach be to maybe take the foot off the pedal a little bit here and relax and just enjoy the game? Or will they take it, quite seriously? I think there's a case to be made for either. The fact that they are you know, tempting fate a little bit with the new map is probably suggesting that they're going to take it quite seriously. And I think, honestly, that's probably the right approach. Continue to build this momentum, build this confidence. They haven't played wildcard this stage, obviously, as it's and a single round robin against all opponents. So they really don't know how they match up against wildcard. And if in the future they play them in a playoffs or whatever, it's always good to, you know, have that head-to-head.
I'm sensing what you're feeling there, guys. It's really hard to sort of pinpoint where Direwolves come into this game, as you mentioned. You know, I think the best approach would be to not take the foot off the pedal, that you really want to be taking the best version of yourselves into the playoffs, where it's obviously going to matter a lot more. But if you take the last couple of rounds too easy, well, then you can let a little bit of that poorer form creep in, and that's not the time that you want to do that. For Wildcard, of course, well, it's a little easier to predict how they're going to want to come into this matchup. It's do or die. They need to be at their best, better than that. Really, any other game we've seen them so far here in Stage 1, going up against the undefeated Direwolves. And in saying that, though, I mean, maybe I'm the only one left, but I still feel like at some point Direwolves will regress a little bit, that it's been almost too good of a stage, that from what we saw of them last year, this whole stage I'm like, nah, surely this will be when Direwolves lose, nah, surely this will be the one, and it just never happens. Credit to them, they've been impeccable to watch, but we'll see if Wildcard can pull off a big upset here, and if they do, well, playoffs on the cards, because they play Renatus in the final Playday.
We've never had a flawless stage in APAC South, stretching back to the start of last year, so if history repeats itself, it's almost a good thing if Direwolves get a loss out early and then don't have to worry too much about the playoffs, but obviously that's all just superstition. First kill off the bat though will be Vinny. Yep, nice grenade there onto Pika. So a nice start here for Wildcard, slowly building map control on the eastern side. It looks like a push through office is probably their game plan.
Yeah, and the player advantage here really going to help. Remembering, of course, Border, especially, you're going to want that sort of 4-2 half on the attack. So for Wildcard, important for them to get off to a good start here. Getting rid of Pika early gives them that advantage. Time, not that much of a factor for Armory Archives, especially once you get a bit of hallway control. And OJ gets rid of Souffle. That's really going to open things up now. I would imagine for the rest of the Direwolves members, it's all on site from here. That means Wildcard can really surround site.
Jackie, we're going to keep position to maybe bring the round back, but he's taken low, and I'm assuming his position revealed. Wildcard going for the hunt, but Cairo falls. OJ to trade, though, so it's a 4v2.
All right, and ED, it does still have a couple of gas canisters, but no chance at all from that deficit. Much the goodness for Wildcard. I mean, that was
much the goodness,
honestly. I don't know what else to say. That was a very surprising round. You know why? Because they systematically just pulled apart Direwolves, a team that is undefeated for this entire stage. You don't really expect Wildcard to come in and play almost that methodically, getting these picks, bringing it just sort of one kill, then one kill, then one kill. Definitely much the goodness.
Well, that's exactly what Dev mentioned on the desk, right? Wildcard, they're going to try and go for structured players and systematically pick apart a lot of these strongholds on border, which can be tricky to defend. So who knows how attacker side this ends up being, but it is in Direwolves' best interests, in my opinion, and the opinion of the desk as well, to get aggressive and to try and disrupt that.
Yeah.
Now, tricky to do that in the 5v3. I think if they maybe had one more player up, Direwolves could commit a little bit more to trying to actually protect Jackie Wu there, and maybe the trade would have been a little bit more 1-for-1 or even lopsided towards them. But the fact that Wildcard was so patient in the early round, found 2 free kills, that gave them basically all the tools and all the comfort that they needed to sort of systematically just ensure that they had that full map control before they execute. So pretty textbook from Wildcard in that first round. I'm sure they'll be pretty pleased with how that one played out. And now we get to see Direwolves try and form a response. We're going back over towards Lockers, a site which, again, personally, this is just my opinion, I do not like. I think it has just been way overplayed, way overrated. It didn't change really much at all in the rework. And when Border got changed up, that site was really falling out of fashion, and it was honestly really hard to defend. Not much has changed. It still feels like teams are leaning towards it.
It does kind of feel like if you are going to defend it successfully, the play over towards security maybe needs to get a little bit more aggressive and really deny positioning for the attacking team, because Wildcard were able to essentially just waltz in, find a pick. Suddenly you got the player advantage, take a little bit more control, get the corridor under control as well. And while all of that was happening, player and security is just kind of sitting there, not really doing anything. So let's see if play with a decent angle, but still, yeah, this is going to be intriguing to see how it plays out. Do Wildcard, well, do they have the way to be able to replicate what we saw in the first round? It's not always that easy, We see defenders sort of repeat. A lot of the times they do it for a reason. And PK goes down first again, so a good start for WILDCARD, and they are actually able to replicate the start of round 1. They now have that 1-player advantage, 2 minutes on the clock. So far, so good.
Sensing a bit of deja vu to round number 1, especially if WILDCARD get another pick for free. Direwolves need to start showing a bit of aggression and a bit of initiation. You can just see how patiently WILDCARD are playing. 3 players currently on drones and everyone else static on the map. They're trying to gain this information, feed it to the fraggers, and then go in as a unit. This is really basic textbook Siege, right?
Yeah.
It's drone in, know where the players are, and push in on the back of utility.
Souffle's got to be a little careful holding this corner position. Obviously could try and go down the hatch minute 20 seconds and has been pinged out. So they are aware of his position. And again, like clockwork, what we saw in the first round is repeating here in the second. A couple of 30-40 seconds after the first kill, there's the second, and then a quick little double now. And maybe just a clean-up moment from OJ, 5 and Zip. It's just, I don't know. Does he think he's on a Giri or something?
Doing his best impression at the moment, and it looks like ED's now obviously going to find himself in a bit of a pickle. Gets the first, but it's Cairo to clean up. The first 2 rounds from WILDCARD so far have been really, really nice.
Yeah, we're not going back there again. I'm sensing Tal's bathroom here in the 3rd round. There's no way you can repeat that if you're the Direwolves. 2 rounds and twice picked apart seamlessly as well. With ease, never really a moment where you think, okay, Direwolves are kind of bringing it back. And at any point, maybe in the midpoint of the round where they can stall it out. No, it's like as soon as WILDCARD get that first kill and you think, okay, this is happening again. But it's the second one that really just snowballs from there. 5-4, 5-3, and then it was just down to 5-1 instantly. So they will go to Taylor's bathroom, and we'll see if they can turn things around here on this particular site. Doesn't mean it's going to be any easier. You think back to Elevate Knights, which is the only other border game we've seen for stage 1, and Taylor's bathroom was, well, easy pickings for the attacking team of Elevate. So, yeah, again, I don't know if much is going to really change here.
Don't mind the castle being an addition here on the defensive side. We saw Elevate in particular against the Knights earlier on in the stage here on border lean quite nicely actually into the castle, establishing some really nice extensions and making attacks a bit more tricky. In those first couple of rounds, WILDCARD again just getting relatively free picks and the map control followed. In fact, we didn't capture every kill, so it's a little bit tricky to make this guess, but I'd be willing to say that at least 2, maybe even 3 of the kills in that previous round from WILDCARD were actually players still outside the building, which is a sign to me that Direwolves are getting way too antsy trying to find plays or make plays that are just not going to happen. So.
I think a large portion of them was off the back of their drone work as well. You know, they were doing a lot of drone work, and then you get the information, then you quickly walk in and swing and get the kill onto the player in security, for example. So I think there was a big portion of that for WILDCARD. And then honestly, if they're playing in that manner, and I think border really plays into that, right, where you've got the outside area that you can kind of like sit down, get on your drones, find information, and pick apart the defense. They're doing it really well. Cairo, okay, that was interesting. Could have maybe gone for the shot there, didn't. Instead gets rid of the shield, looking to push over towards East Stairs here in the 3rd round, and it's Harambe who gets the opening pick for the Direwolves. They're not going to go down without a fight. This is an undefeated Direwolves, top of the standings. At some point, of course, they were going to bite back. It may be here in the 3rd. Cairo this time redeems himself. Probably should have hit that shot earlier.
Yeah, pretty aggressive there from Harambe, but a good trade to bring it back to a 4 versus 4. And if WILDCARD are going to continue to lean heavily into drones, hold that thought. Almost like Jackie Boo was on for a kill. We need to see more denial from Direwolves. They're not bringing the mute, they're not bringing the Mozzie. And if WILDCARD continue to lean into this, that's an adaptation that we have to see from the defense.
It's because they're playing for more of that vertical hold. You got the castle, you got the Oryx, so they're playing more into positional hold rather than utility hold. That's an easy one for Jackie Wu. Cairo had no idea that he was that close. And then a freebie onto Molosca. Just a little slow going to respond there, but the Direwolves respond aggressively in this round. In this third, the vertical hold proving to be too difficult for WILDCARD to dismantle. Only Vincia that remains in the 1 versus 4. Never even really getting a look in on site. Much better here for Taylor's bathroom, but now, of course, it's going to be locked away. Do they go back to Armory Archives?
Ponder that for a moment as Vinny sees if there's something available for him in this round, but maybe a couple of kills. I wouldn't expect him to clutch it from this position, isolated over towards Fountain. Might be able to find something on the vert, but the second his position is revealed, Diver's likely to converge on his position, and definitely a little bit more patient comparatively to the first 2 rounds. Sharp there from Vinny, but he'll need to produce 3 more.
Attackers have located a bomb.
It's almost like a little how-to guide of clearing above and pushing over towards site with pro players and all the angles they check and the time that they do take. But was never a chance to win that one. Direwolves respond off the back of 2 pretty disastrous opening rounds on Armory Archives. They take out Teller's Bathroom. Now we head to Vent Workshop for our 4th round, and we'll see if the Direwolves can make it 2 in a row.
I think the main spanner in the works of that previous round, again, probably was that castle. The only true counter they had to it was Sledge, and Vinny was never going to really be in a position to get close enough to those barricades just because of where they were sort of placed and the defenders were therefore positioned to defend them. It would have been probably better off them having a Zofia available, maybe even an Ash, or if absolutely necessary, lean heavily into the grenades that were available to clear them, because we saw, particularly over towards Break Room, Jackie Wee was able to hold down that line because he had the protection from the corridor and because of some of the chokes that were therefore established. So if we see the castle brought back in, I think Wildcard maybe need to lean either into repick or just ensure they approach them with a little bit more finesse. It's not going to be an issue though here for round number 4. The castle has been exchanged out.
Fun fact with Xenox, this is the first time we're going to be seeing Ventilation Workshop for stage 1, as it was not played in the Elevate versus Knights matchup of Border. Electing for custom supply as the tertiary site. In this case, though, it's Vent's Workshop. So we'll see how this does play out. Can't imagine it's going to play out too differently than it would have in the past, for example. And again, Direwolves electing for maybe a bit of a vert hold up above. No real surprise over towards Armory Archives. Let's see what the wildcard guys have got to take down this round, because the last round, well, was not very good compared to their first 2 rounds.
Divers are bringing the moot this round though, so now we get to see, is that enough to disrupt the information gathering here from Wildcard with their drones? The first couple of rounds, they were relentless, at times having up to 3 people droning simultaneously to locate, particularly players off-site on the roam, holding control over towards the likes of security, office, etc. So with those moots down from Harambe, we should see that progression slow down a little bit here from Wildcard, and I'm really not anticipating there to be as many early picks from Wildcard compared to those first 2 attempts.
Easters control already for Molosca is at least decent, and they can look to clear out break room and security and establish a bit of a foothold more so towards the inside of the map. Molosca going to open up offices. Still just under 2 minutes. Time is fine for the time being. As Molosca as well on the IQ can deal with those mute jammers that you were mentioning before. And there's a player there as well. Can't see them. Wall obviously obstructing the vision. Shots now being fired back over towards top east. 1.5 minutes remaining in this 4th round. You mentioned there weren't going to be too many early round eliminations, and so far it's played out that way.
Patience from both sides. You would imagine this will eventually lean in towards Wildcard once they get this chokehold established up above, and their patience should be rewarded. But on the flip side, Divers, they are known to flick a switch, get a little bit aggressive in the faces here of attacks, and you might well see that dynamic change. ED's cameras spotted around the map. Molosca, the hard counter on the IQ. That prompts a Nitro from down below. You could hear that in the background, but doesn't really find much. Souffle does find his target though, so that's Cairo off the board. He's been pretty influential in the start of this one.
Yeah, not even just for this match, but really this entire stage, arguably being Wildcard's best player since coming across from Overt. And Souffle finds a double and should now be a triple. That's Jackie Wu, and Jackie Wu should finish this all off. Finds 2 more in this round. And OJ, like Vince here before him, in a 1 versus 4. And the Direwolves do, in fact, bite back. They take Teller's Bathroom, they take Vent's Workshop, which we didn't even really get to see anything of it, because it was just the battle for Armory and Archives, which took so long to really establish to try and get this vert control. Not only could they not get it, But no more time remaining for OJ to pull something off here as Pika shuts him down. It's 2 in a row now for the Direwolves.
A nice little showing there of what Workshop has to offer. Direwolves doing a really good job to hold out up above, particularly inside of that small office. Bullet Hose doing its job. I don't see a whole lot of Maestro these days, but can, of course, be quite impactful when selected. So I'm sure WILDCARD would be pretty disappointed with their transition in that particular round. It was a decent start, but unfortunately time catching up with them. They felt the pressure. They filtered in a little bit too one by one there and unable to trade out. Tactical, relatively early here,
Very
but
early.
again, I don't mind it, right? WILDCARD, I'm sure, are wanting to really capitalize on this attack half and maybe try and bounce back from a few disappointing rounds so far.
Yeah, I have to agree with you. You know how I am with these tactical timeouts. Better take it early and be proactive with it rather than reactive. Also, we're going to custom supply, which, again, another Xenox fun fact. I know, small sub sample here, Guz, but it has never been won by an attacking team this stage. Although I only played 2 times, so forget about the sample size and just take into account the 100% win rate for the defenders. WILDCARD will need to overcome that, find victory here on Customs Supply in the 5th round if they are to have a good attacking half here on border. And I think the one thing that is very concerning is the fact that I don't know if Direwolves will be going back to Armory Archives, and if that is the case, where's WILDCARD going to find these round wins to close out this half?
Yeah, it's certainly concerning. The ball is in the court of Direwolves at the moment, but again, that's probably why the decision for the tactical timeout has been executed here from WILDCARD. I think it is probably a fantastic opportunity to try and reset, have a bit of a chat and discuss maybe what's happened so far and what they can fine-tune heading into the rest of the game. It looks like they're all super focused at the moment. Again, sometimes it can be very challenging, I think, to discern focus from tilt. And I think WILDCARD would probably admit historically sometimes their frustration has gotten a little bit better of them when they've particularly actually been in winnable positions and unable to close out games. So I'm hoping that it is focus that we're seeing on those faces at the moment. And yeah, they're by no means completely out of the running in this game. It's been an okay start for them, but I think the next couple of rounds are going to be critical and probably make or break the map for them.
Yeah, well, I mean, Armory Archives, of course, was amazing, right? They were winning the rounds convincingly, and it looked like maybe they were really switched on here. And as soon as Direwolves, you know, bring themselves away from Armory Archives and basically every other site since then, it's actually been the opposite, where the Direwolves now are winning these kind of rounds with the 4-1 advantage, which is very significant because it kind of highlights the fact that WILDCARD's never really in these rounds for rounds 3 and 4, that they're kind of beaten to a pulp early on enough that the Direwolves then don't have to really stress towards the end of the round because it's a 1 versus 4, right? So I think the biggest thing for WILDCARD in these last 2 rounds, win or lose, is just at least being in a more winnable position at the end of the mid-round going into that execution phase of these rounds, which will be obviously custom supply, and then I would imagine Taller's Bathroom for the 6th round. I would be very surprised if we go back to Armory Archives, unless Direwolves just want to sort of try something out there for the sake of future games. But for WILDCARD, this timeout, it's gone on a little bit longer, so I think it maybe has transitioned into something else at this point, because it has in fact turned into a technical pause on top of it, so it's a bit of a double timeout. And honestly, I don't think they would have wanted a double timeout. I think just the one would have been enough for them. So now it kind of, because the thing is, now you've had this much time where it's almost too much time, right? Now it's like you're going to be going into the game cold.
Yeah, I mean, that goes for both teams, right? And maybe that's a discussion within itself, the skill of being able to refocus after a long pause, because they can be random, they can be sporadic. Sometimes there's game bugs, sometimes there's other issues, etc., that are outside of player control. And that's just part of playing any esport, really. You know, there's going to be pauses that are outside of your control, and you can only control your square meter, right? There's nothing you can do to speed up the game. So yeah, it's a skill within itself, being able to mentally reset, even physically reset, because at least for me, I know that, I mean, even casting, right? Just sitting here, sometimes you start getting a bit fidgety, you just want the game to start, and it can negatively impact your performance inside of the server, right? So yeah, it's certainly, I don't think, desirable for WILDCARD, but also for Direwolves as well, because now their momentum, which they arguably were starting to recover upon in the previous round, now it's stunted. It's basically completely eradicated.
Yeah.
And, yeah, we almost go back to square zero. It's almost a round one of sorts as we look to close out this first half.
And bringing it to that sort of little podcast moment here, guys. But Border, we've seen it now for one time with Elevate and Knights, and almost a full half here again, and seeing maybe some different sites like Ventilation and Workshop. Dev alluded to on the desk, not really that many changes, and plays out like it used to. I guess that we've seen enough now to basically say that's pretty much bang on the money.
Look, I'll be completely honest. I was looking at a very rude message there from James Devmarter Stewart in the chat. He was talking a bit of smack about you, so I did zone out a little bit. Yeah, I'll defend you. I'll defend you to my death. It's completely unprofessional from him. I would expect better from a 4 times 6 invitational desk analyst, 1-time show match caster, but yeah. Oh, actually, he's telling me he was a 2-time show match caster. My apologies. Please do not make a tweet longer about me. That would be awful.
You're just going to completely elude the topic that I wanted to introduce.
You were talking about Border, right?
Yeah. Good job, guys. Well done.
What do you want to talk about on Border?
I think that, when it's come back into the map pool, maybe there were some concerns that it probably isn't going to play all that differently than it did in the past, and that would not be good, right? Because I think it got a little stale before it got taken out, and has much really changed? I'm not so sure. Does that maybe play into certain teams? Are they then happy to then play it because it's kind of more in that cafe territory rather than, say, like a skyscraper where it's a little bit new?
There's definitely elements of familiarity on Border, and in terms of actual structural change to the map, objectively, it has had the least. Yes, we had that season where we had a couple of maps changed as opposed to a singular rework. Yeah, Border didn't change all that much, but I do think that with some sites like Talos, for example, now actually being quite viable, and the approach from the teams themselves differing a little bit in terms of Castle being quite popular, attacker repick shifting the meta a little bit, it doesn't play out the exact same as OG Border. And for the wildcard storyline, right? That's probably a pretty good thing, because we actually have. Dev was telling me before he had a look. We actually have not got a documented game on Border for wildcard as an organization. It has been their Instaban since 2019. It goes that far back. They just don't play this map. So they obviously a very different roster now. I assume have worked pretty hard on improving that map, and with all different players coming from different teams, they can combine that knowledge and create their own sort of character here on this map. And as for Diables as well, limited data in that sense as well. And yeah, from what we've seen so far, it plays slightly differently.
Yeah.
But there is that element of familiarity for sure.
And just to keep everyone updated, the original tactical timeout of
It's a really long tactical. It's
into
really
a
long.
technical pause, which then turned into a full-blown rehost. So that is why this has gone on a little longer than you would generally have, especially for a regular timeout. Hopefully not too far away from getting back into this one. Of course, update for those who maybe missed the scores. 2-2 is the current scoreline between Wildcard and the Direwolves. 2 attacking rounds for Wildcard, 2 defender rounds for the Direwolves. Customs supply should be our 5th round coming up, which we haven't seen yet in this particular matchup. But again, we got the pleasure of casting Border last time, Guz, and well, that was a very one-sided affair. It was really hard to sort of gauge from that. Elevate definitely played very well in the attacking half, and then defended pretty strongly too in the second half. Coming into this one though, for a second, especially with the first 2 rounds that we saw from Wildcard, I'm like, oh, here we go, attacker side boarded. But I think we are going to be able to still see some teams defend this pretty well. When it's all said and done and you get a whole bigger sample size, I think this might be closer to a 50-50 rather than, say, attacker-sided. I also think the other part of it that needs to be taken into account, and what we saw last time, is the new operators that are available compared to when Border was last in the map pool. And I think we saw a bunch of Floras as an example, guys, last time between Elevate and Knights, and had really good effect for Elevate. Don't think we've seen that at all in this particular matchup, but that's a really good operator that leans itself to playing in a very similar manner to, like, say, an Oregon or a Cafe or something, where you've got that more slower approach, throw out the Roteros, clear a lot of utility, and I think you can do that really, really well on Border.
Even Thunderbird as well. I'm just trying to think back to a couple of the defensive setups here from Direwolves, right? Small office in the last round is probably an okay example, where Kona stations would probably be quite viable to post yourself up in a powerful position, replenish health, provided you don't get taken out by a headshot, and even use other stations elsewhere to facilitate rotations, etc. We even saw extensions in towards security, for example, where those stations could probably work. But we are back. The rehost, well, I'm not going to say it's concluded just yet because we aren't actually in the game. I don't want to curse anything, but it does look like we'll be jumping in just a moment.
Yes, the suspense is killing us, guys, to get back into this one. It was a very good start to this game. I think we prefaced everything pretty nicely. For Direwolves, of course, it's about keeping the streak alive, undefeated here in the stage, and of course could be the first team to go undefeated for an entire regular season if they can manage victory here and in Playday 7. For Wildcard, pretty simple. They got to win if they're to make top 4. If they lose today, I mean, it might be a case where mathematically it could still happen, but very unlikely. But if they win today, then I'd say it's actually more likely than not that they will then actually make top 4. You give them the 3 points here, 3 points against Redatus, that puts them on 12. As everything kind of stands right now, I think that will end up being enough. So they have destiny in their own hands. It's 2-2. They've already got 2 attacking round wins, but those came on Armory Archives, which I don't think Direwolves will want to head back to anytime soon. For now, we obviously head over to Customs Supply.
Pulse going to play a critical role, I think, in this particular round. Pika can use that heartbeat sensor to scan out where these attackers are approaching from, and fair play might be on the agenda as well. Milo, though, again, a hard counter. Souffle. Oh my god, the timing on that could not have been any worse. Probably a kill gone begging. And Souffle now positions over towards security, looking to try and maintain a bit of vert control on the defense.
Pika on the pulse as well, suggesting Direwolves going to be looking to get a little active here and trying to find more information on Wildcard and dealing with it. Edie's still on that mute, so that's continued to stay into effect. Forced out the IQ from Molosca last time and does so once again to try and clear out those mute jammers. So the IQ proving to be useful here on border. Again, top east stairs control really easily established for Wildcard. In through break room as well, security. It's been, I want to say, I could be wrong here, guys, but pretty much the exact same entry from Wildcard every round so far, regardless of site.
Yeah, it's been a pretty blanket approach, giving me some of that cafe vibe, you know, approach from 1 point every single round, regardless of the objective itself. But that's the nature of border. It is a pretty compact map. You need to be taking basically the entire map itself for control. It's not like a bank, for example, where you might be able to ignore particular pockets of the map. Again, being so small, being basically a cube, you want to be taking a pretty...
A cube, is it?
You want to be taking a pretty methodical approach. Oh, I mean, it is, kind of. I'd say it's the closest map to a cube that we've got. Rectangular prism, I'm being told. Probably technically more correct, yeah. I haven't done grade 4 math in a while, though.
Bomb located by
Doing some maths now. Minute and 5 seconds remaining. Oh, an easy headshot for Molosca.
That's the pulse counter.
Yeah, Pulse just gets scanned out by the IQ. Little role reversal, and it gives Wildcard the advantage here for Customs Supply.
Oh, the nade.
The nade will get rid of that
Pity.
one. Well, that's not going to get... Well, yeah, it does get rid of the exothermic. Even Pat was sort of like, hang on a second. Yeah, not the best nade from Vincier, and I think this one's jammed as well. 40 seconds, and Wildcard's suddenly having a bit of trouble here. Mute
How
jammer
did that
is
nade?
Up. That nade didn't get rid of the mute jammer.
What?
35 seconds. They're going to have to funnel in. No, he's missed that one too.
Is this mute jammer made of Kevlar? What? I cannot believe that mute jammer is still standing.
No,
but
just
OJ
shoot them
finds a
all.
kill.
Forget the wall. Just shoot them all.
ED, Jackie down 2v5.
Oh, well, this is the weirdest round I've seen, and yet somehow Wildcard coming away with the round win. They've beaten Direwolves in this round, but they couldn't beat that mute jammer. They couldn't beat that reinforced wall. It didn't matter in the end. Comical, though, Guz.
Like, what? We must be looking at a different feed. I am blown away that mute jammer is still standing. I swear, whenever I play mute, they get blown up from 35 meters across the map by grenades. So I don't know what the hell was going on there. But
Oh, jeez.
I guess Direwolves were as bewildered as we were because they just allowed Wildcard to stroll forward and pick them apart, really. So props to Wildcard. Obviously would have been incredibly frustrated and confused like we were for a brief period, but they bounced back. They got a round win, and in fact, that's actually positioned themselves quite nicely now to maybe even have a lead heading into the second half.
Well, I think at one point Pat clicked the little detonator to block the exothermic, and he's like, hang on a second, there is no exothermic there. What happened? How did that happen? Vinny with the nade and then missed the second nade, and then I think someone threw a third nade and it just missed everything. So they get the round win, though. We do head back to Armory Archives, though, guys. And I have a little egg on my face because I said this wouldn't happen. I thought Direwolves would go to Talon's bathroom, but this maybe alludes to future-proofing for Direwolves. Do they look at this round and say, all right, we kind of stuffed up the first 2 rounds, didn't go well. Let's get some practice on Armory Archives because we maybe are going to play border at some point in the future, whether it's playoffs or stage 2 or whatever. And let's see if we can figure out where our problems are, get a little bit more VOD footage as well. At the end of the day, they don't need to win this particular round or this map. So why not go back to it and see how they can fix things?
It's the anti-save strat strategy. It's the show strat, improve strat strategy.
Oh, the build strat.
I'm trademarking that. Don't steal it.
You can have it.
It was awful. Probably not too far off the mark though, right? I think Dai was, particularly over the course of that long pause, may have identified a couple of issues on this objective, and there were a few to unpack.
Oh, no.
Fortunately though, they don't fix that one. Another nade to get the opening kill.
And I'm pretty sure that now means for the first half, 4 of the 6 rounds for WILDCARD have been opening kills. And of those 4, I think they've gone on to win. I think the only other 2 were rounds 3 and 4, which Direwolves, of course, came away with victory there. 2 adrenal surges used already, though, very early on in the round. I'll only have 1 more.
Whoa.
Cairo allows Souffle to make the mad dash out of break and in towards 90. So just under 2 minutes left. They're going to have to save that adrenal surge, surely.
Oh, that's an old nade spot from up above.
Mr. Jammer, though.
Oh my god. These jammers! What are they made of? What did they eat for breakfast, dude? I have never seen jammers this strong in all my life. Ever. 6 years.
But guys, that might be good news for WILDCARD because the last time they couldn't get rid of a jammer, they just went and just wiped the floor of the Direwolves anyway, and they got the down onto Harambe. They got angles, sightlines in towards Armory Archives. That swing from Pat! He gets rid of Harambe. Edie just somehow stays alive. The barest of margins as Pat is down. Edie confirmed. WILDCARD just cleaning up the Direwolves. Anything they can't clean up are the mute jammers.
Jackie Wu now 1v4 isolated over towards Armory Lockers. Do not count this man out. So many clutches this stage thus far, but he can't clutch that one out, and WILDCARD with the 4-2 lead at the end of the half.
Just mesmerizing, isn't it, guys? These pesky little mute jammers. Doesn't bother WILDCARD in the end, though. They take the 4-2 attacking half on border like we predicted and thought would be necessary if they are to find victory here on border. They've done that. Job done for the first half. We'll see what Direwolves have, as WILDCARD apparently not too concerned with Armory Archives as to what we saw in that first half, which was 3 times that the defending Direwolves could not defend it.
Now we see the dynamic obviously shift across. WILDCARD going to be strong and aggressive perhaps on their defense, as we saw on those attacks where, especially the ones where they got the opening kill and were able to convert, looked pretty brutal, especially over towards Armory. We're going to see it first once again. And this may well reinforce my personal belief that this site sucks. I'm just so sick of seeing it. I don't think it's good. If we don't see WILDCARD defend this site, I will put it on my gravestone that this site sucks.
What if they do defend it successfully?
And then WILDCARD are the best team in the league.
Well, I mean, you take down the best. Does that mean you become the best? You might not be that far off. It would be a big result, though. Sort of just reeling it back in because they are up 2 rounds now. Yes, it was sort of like attacking rounds on border. You would kind of expect that they would be able to get that done in the first half, but they put themselves now in a position where they could walk away with a win here against Direwolves, which would be just about shocking everyone. I don't think anyone would have really predicted this kind of result, that the Direwolves streak would come to an end at the hands of WILDCARD. No disrespect to WILDCARD, but you know they've been thereabouts this stage, not really contending is what I'll say. You win this though, and suddenly they'll jump into the top 4 with 3 points here. That's just how I think well, not quite yet, but wait, will it or not? No, sorry, they can't tonight. They can though. next week against Renata. So that's the big thing.
Still an opportunity for wildcard here in stage 1. That's how you nade. That is how you nade. Well played by Direwolves, opening up the triple wall cleanly now. Thermites and Salmers to follow up. Souffle's actually got good positioning over towards 90. Able to pop down a shield. It's a good position to bunker down on. He could hold that cross through beepers. And that's one of the big weaknesses of that site. If you have this cross, getting back between the objectives, so tough.
Attackers have located a bomb.
Good news for what being that they haven't had anyone fall for that first pick. It's Cairo who actually got Harambe. Was immediately Jackie with through. Officer should swing, get another one. No, OJ stays alive. Just barely in Fountain. It's still kind of stuck there though. Does mean Direwolves could come back and try and finish the job. Nade gets thrown over, but just barely avoids it. Remembering having that very low amount of health, Direwolves with the man advantage, and with OJ low, perilous position here for Wildcard to hold on and defend this site.
Jackie
Nice from Jackie Wu.
That's 3. On for the ace, maybe? We'll have to see. AD with a good cross, and again, getting between these objectives so tough. But Milo makes the run. Good trade, though. 1v3, and Pat's left in the clutch seat, but there's nothing he can do. Direwolves take the map. Or take the round, rather. Not quite the map just yet. And this objective, it sucks. Stop playing it. It is not good. This is literally the embodiment of Chalet Basement. Stop playing it. Just stop. Please.
What do you mean? Chalet Basement's gone pretty good at the moment, mate. Have you seen the statistics?
Just stop. You will tilt me. You will tilt me.
Me?
Yes. If I'm not already tilted. I may have got a little bit too hard there. But honestly, I don't know if you guys heard, but this site sucks.
Yeah, look, that's now 4 rounds that we've seen of Armory Archives. 4 times the attackers have won. So I'm very much in agreement with you guys, and I think it's time for both of these two teams to stop heading there. Obviously for Direwolves, that's, well, unless we go to overtime. If we see Armory Archives in overtime, I'm just walking off set. I don't care. I'm just leaving. There's just no way any of these two teams should be heading back there. None of the rounds have been convincing. In fairness, that was maybe the closer of the rounds that we've seen on it. And even then, Direwolves were relatively in control. We do head to Tal's bathroom, though, for round number 8. And we'll see if Wildcard can defend successfully here, which is what Direwolves were able to do. With a bit of a vert hold, of course, we're seeing the castle playing a rather critical role here. Remembering more barricades this time around compared to Old Border. So you can control the map a little bit more nowadays with current castle than you could back in the day, back in 2019, back in the early part of 2020.
Don't mind the 0 selection here from ED, a little bit of a niche in general for Siege, but particularly in competitive, but those cameras can gain quite a bit of information, 4 in total. Claymore as well in pocket, which could sooner rather than later be 2 Claymores at a time if the patch on the test server makes its way through, which will shift that dynamic quite a bit. Pika, though, needs to be mindful of the boost, and Milo on one of the OG border boosts will get the opening pick.
Yeah, Pika, I think forgetting about that one. Not that I ever knew it, because I wasn't around back in those days, but clearly Milo was the ancient specimen. Jackie Wu, though, does get control of top east stairs. I will say, both now attack and defense, it's Wildcard that continued to be the better team at finding these opening picks. Direwolves now have to deal with the castle barricades. They can open up pretty easily, but there's just obviously more of them. And really controlled down below as well. So time is obviously going to be a factor in trying to clear a lot of this top vertical hold over towards officers. And Direwolves throwing out all of their utility to try and clear out this area. Harambe trying to open up this wall. But there is a player holding that angle up close. So it is Vincia, and he drops down for safety.
Halfway point of the round, and I think Milo and OJ may now only be the last 2 up above. OJ over towards the armory desk in that small office position, but both players are going to be under the pump soon. A cheeky deployable shield here inside a fountain for Milo, looking to lock off some of these positions up above, particularly through archives, but Jackie Wu shuts him down and that triggers OJ to drop.
Yeah, and the downside for that kind of position is there's just kind of no way out. He gets double droned, and now they know, okay, this is just a guy holding in fountain behind a shield. We can easily, you know, pinch him there and swing, get that kill, deal with him. You want that position cleared out, so it's a part of your checklist anyway. And Milo does go down really for nothing in the end. And even though Pika's off the board, you do still have Harambe on the Thermite, so still at least a bit of hard bridge potential. Not that I think that's going to be too much of a worry at this point. In fact, they are now on site.
A lot of pressure. Wildcard playing very deep over towards likes of Server and Workshop. Trying to deny the plant from here could be tricky. Depends where Direwolves try and stick.
Well, at this point, denying it may not be the problem. It's more so, can they get the retake? Because this plant's going down from Harambe, and if he plants this one down, I don't know if Wildcard are going to get back into this one with Kyra and Vinny both low. Vinny's gone, and Kyra gets a shot in the back. Souffle with a double, cleans them up. A little perplexing in the end from Wildcard. Clearly tried something, played off site, as he said, over towards Workshop. A little bit, almost as far back as Server as well. Allowed them to have that drop down onto site, and Direwolves punished them. It's now 4-4 so far this entire game. It's been 2 rounds to the good for both teams. So 2 to Wildcard, then 2 to Direwolves, then 2 to Wildcard, now 2 to Direwolves. We'll see. Can Wildcard keep that pattern alive and get the next 2?
No reattempt of Armory here for round 9, but Bathroom Tellers will get a second crack by Wildcard, and from what we've seen in those couple of rounds, in my opinion, probably the right call. I think there was a lot more promise in that most recent round. For the most part, they denied time well. I think they just leaked a couple of picks that they probably shouldn't have. Milo inside of Fountain is one that stands out. And then they didn't have an anchor position inside of Bathroom, for example, to apply pressure there. Instead, they were forced back over towards the likes of Workshop. And to their credit, Direwolves, they had players positioned perfectly, actually partially leaning into the fact that Castle was offering them quite a bit of protection, cutting off those rotations. So getting back towards site, whether it be from Customs, for example, or Workshop itself, very, very tough. And unfortunately for Wildcard, they couldn't make that stick. They're going to reattempt, and I mean, some of the stuff I'm seeing so far, very, very similar. We're seeing the Mute Jammers on triple wall, which has been dealt with. We're seeing that Fountain Shield again, which was dealt with. There needs to be something that changes here to throw Direwolves off, because that last round was pretty clean from them.
Yeah, as soon as we've just panned over and seen this shield and Fountain, I'm just already a little worried. Because it's just such a interesting position, because by playing behind that shield, it's already quite defensive. You can't, like, if you, oh my god, Edie's just found Pat, like 2 seconds into the round. Wait, hang on a second. They're straight into site already. Wildcard is still trying to set up above. Fortunately, OJ gets one back, and it's just kicked off here. There's so much time, but it just does not matter. Edie inside a Bathroom finds another one onto Molosca, finds 2 in the round. Cairo and OJ are in a 2 versus 4. We've still got 2 minutes and 20 seconds. This is a disaster. Really well played, though, from the Direwolves, catching Wildcard off guard, even catching us off guard. OJ gets rid of Pika. Can they bring this back, though? It's not, I mean, there's so much time here for Wildcard to bring it back. Diffuser not in hand for Direwolves at the moment. So realistically, this one can really slow down a little bit.
The fact that that diffuser has not been stuck amidst the chaos gives Wildcard a great opportunity. OJ with 3, but Souffle lurks for 1 himself. Now OJ needs the 1v2. He needs the ace. The diffuser still not in the hands of Direwolves. This is winnable. Ooh. As I say that, though, Souffle shuts him down. The rush from Direwolves, a success.
Yeah, just a little slow on the trigger there, I think. Momentarily from OJ. Yeah, that was a very, very well executed round for the Direwolves, and they were on site immediately, as quick as you possibly can. That felt like a speed run from the Direwolves, and they now take the lead here on Border 5-4 as we head to Armory and Archives. Guz, you look like you're having an aneurysm at this point, a very, very bad headache.
Well, at this point, where else do you go? If you're not finding success in Tellers, is Workshop going to work? Is Customs going to work? I don't know. Maybe it is the most calculated play. In fact, it probably is.
No, it's not. I think you give something else a try. Maybe Workshop.
At this point, I'd probably tend to agree.
Well, okay, but this is where it comes down to, right? New maps that have come into the map pool. We haven't seen Border for a long time. Historically, Wildcard have not really been a Border team. Do have to question, and obviously we don't know the answer here, is how much time have they realistically put into Border? Is it just kind of there and they're, you know, they know it a little bit, they've got the basics down pat, like Armory, Archives, and Tellers Bathroom? Can they go off-site? Can they go to the other tertiary sites? Is that something in, you know, the wheel bag? We don't know. We just legitimately don't know. But what I will say right now, Direwolves look a little bit more competent, just a little bit. Besides basically Armory, Archives, they've looked better everywhere else.
Attackers dropped the diffuser.
And you consider the fact
Attackers
that this
recovered the
match,
bomb diffuser.
it means something, but not everything. This is not must-win for Direwolves yet. They're actually putting in a pretty good performance. If there was any doubt for Wildcard on this map, I don't see why they would play it. This is a must-win game. The last 2 playdays for Wildcard are critical for them to being any chance to make the top 4, to make the APAC playoffs. Direwolves don't have that stress, that pressure surrounding them. Maybe that's what's allowing them to just edge out a little bit here. Pressure is often a pretty significant factor that can impact performance, and Direwolves playing with a bit more freedom perhaps are finding success. But still potentially a long way to go. Wildcard will be desperately trying to deny a match point here. They need 3 points here. They must win in regulation to be a serious shot for the top 4. So the next couple of rounds for them could well make or break their stage.
Well, if the last round was a very, very quick blitz, this one slow to get going. In fact, already down to 90 seconds remaining, essentially. No real engagement from either side. And that might be a big upper hand, though, for Wildcard. They probably don't want another Direwolves blitz onto site. Cairo, can he find something? And this is where Wildcard do need to really mix things up a little bit. Try and play some off angles. Be aggressive, but in a controlled manner. Batteries getting dealt with on that reinforced wall with the mute jammers as well. In this 10th round, it's still 5 versus 5. Wildcard have been very good at finding these opening picks, but not sure about that nitrosol from Cairo. Might be for the late round.
Yeah, assuming it's for a plant and all, perhaps. Minute to go, Wildcard burnt so much time. I was going to say they were almost playing perfectly, but Pika gets the first onto OJ, who's being pretty dangerous at times in this matchup. Milo can't find the tradie. D and Harambe get in on the action, and it has fallen apart for Wildcard. This map, their stage, Cairo left for the clutch, denies the plant, but still has 30 seconds to hold off.
I mean, are you really surprised though, Guz? Are you really surprised? I don't think there's any part of you that's like, oh my god, where did that come from? Do you reckon they repeat it again? Just no, they don't. This has just been disappointing from Wildcard here on the defense. And I think really does sort of drive home the attacking nature of Border. For those maybe only just tuning in, 10 rounds have now been played. 8 of them have been won by the attacking team. 8 out of 10 rounds. Staggering number as the Direwolves call a tactical timeout, which hopefully does not lead into a technical pause into a full-blown rehost.
The storyline, though, for Wildcard, even if by some miracle they bring this back, they push overtime, they get a win, they get 2 points, that significantly hinders their chances of being able to crack into the top 4. They already need, I believe, results to go their way, and if they are chasing by a point in a league that has had very few overtimes, I mean, it might not be completely aligned through their name, but it would have to be very, very, very close. So, very disappointing for Wildcard, and they were looking pretty strong in the first half.
Is it disappointing because of the connotation to of the result, right? You lose this, that's top 4 gone. You win this, top 4 suddenly not even a reality, but very likely. Is that what makes it a little bit more heartbreaking? Because there is so much on the line for them, and you probably wanted them to throw absolutely everything at this. They started well in the first half and seemingly have looked at C here on the defense. It makes it very disappointing to watch.
Yeah, when it's such an important match and they don't quite deliver, it is quite disappointing. And I think in a match like this, where for Direwolves ultimately it doesn't mean all that much, we can place a little bit more emphasis perhaps on the disappointment for Wildcard, who had a strong first play day, 7-2 against the Knights. Since that point onwards, they have been very, very quiet. The only game they have won since then was against Fury, and they haven't gotten a single point so far in this league. So for Wildcard, it has been a disappointing result today. It has been a disappointing stage for them as well. And the storyline for them for so long has been They've got the players. They've got the potential. We just got to wait a little bit. I don't want to say this because it's too early, but we are getting echoes of that right now. And it would just be awful for WILDCARD to go through this rebuild phase and not progress any further than they were able to achieve last year. So somber times for the OS fans, perhaps. But again, Dire Wolves a single round away from continuing this flawless streak. And Souffle kicks it off with a bang. Vinny, though, trades.
Yeah, but no Cairo. Hate to say it, but he's been their best player all stage long, and they will not have him for this match point round. At the very least, though, got the down and elimination, then on to Souffle, who is 9-3 since the rehost. But this has been the difference. They've just been so much better at clearing out office and opening up the office wall. It's actually, this has been like clockwork. I swear both teams with the same entry points here. The difference being, though, Dire Wolves just a little bit cleaner at times. Jackie Wu finds another kill and re-advantage. Why is Molosca still playing this position? Gets pushed out of it. Now, this actually might benefit him instead, because he may catch someone off guard and does so. Onto Jackie Wu. Oh, he couldn't get the second one. Needed to. Onto Harambe. Stays alive. He has Diffuser as well. And suddenly, it's now a 2 versus 2. Harambe has the drop down into bathroom. Pat inside of waiting, has 3 gas babes, at least back in towards Towers. Minute left, big round here.
Lots of chaos over towards office, but now there's a lull in the action. Dire Wolves are looking to try and get an entry in towards the objective itself. Good vert control, but obviously need to get boots on the ground on this first floor. Harambe leads the charge over towards east stairs. I'm assuming see Pika move alongside him. They need to try and time this push together.
Yeah, and fortunately with one of the Towers windows barricaded, only has to watch the other one. Oh, the swing. Harambe, headshot, Pat goes down. OJ inside a server now. At least has the 1v1 against Pika, needs to win it. Pika's low. So it's OJ who has the advantage and makes the most of it. Now he knows where Harambe is, and of course Diffuser is down, and Harambe is low. OJ full health. 34 seconds though. Oh, he's spotted. What an angle. The Dire Wolves by far and away the better team here. A clean sweep in the second half. WILDCARD just could not go with them here on border. And the Harambe dance continues for a 6th time in a row. 6-0 for the Dire Wolves.
The road to the perfect stage continues for the Dire Wolves, and that's a little bit cringe from you, Rob, but not Rob, from you, Jake. But definitely not cringe inside the server there for the Dire Wolves.